Claire, tell me that boy is not mine. The question crossed Main Street so quietly that Claire Bennett almost wished Ethan Blackwood had shouted it. 7 years had changed his face, sharpened his jaw, and placed a royal crest over the heart of the black coat he wore, but nothing had changed those silver-gray eyes. Now they were fixed on the 7-year-old boy standing beside her. Lucas held a paper bag from the bakery in one hand, his dark hair untidy from the mountain wind, his own silver-gray eyes moving curiously between his mother and the man everyone in Cedar Falls had just bowed to. Claire felt her wolf rise beneath her ribs with a force she had not experienced in years. Around Ethan, royal attendants waited in perfect silence. Behind Claire, the bell above her herbal shop door trembled in the breeze. She stepped slightly in front of Lucas. Not because she believed Ethan would hurt him. Somehow, even after 7 years, she knew he would not. She moved because protecting Lucas had become as natural as breathing. Ethan noticed. Pain flickered across his face. Claire. She had imagined hearing him say her name again more times than she would ever admit. In some versions she walked away. In others she demanded answers. She had never imagined him standing before her as the Alpha King. Mom, Lucas whispered. Ethan's gaze dropped to the boy again. Claire saw the calculation beginning behind his eyes. 7 years. A familiar face. A familiar scent. Those impossible eyes. Who is he? Lucas asked. Claire opened her mouth, but no answer came. Ethan took one careful step forward. Claire's wolf surged toward him while her hand reached backward for her son. Then Ethan stopped. He looked at Claire as though he understood that one more step required permission he no longer possessed. How old is he? Claire's throat tightened. She had protected this truth through birthdays, school registrations, fevers, scraped knees, Christmas mornings, and every quiet night when Lucas asked why other children had fathers waiting outside their classrooms. She had always believed the man responsible had chosen to disappear. But Ethan was staring at her now with the expression of someone seeing 7 missing years all at once. Claire tightened her fingers around Lucas's hand. The answer could wait another moment. The truth had already begun without it. 7 years earlier, Claire had driven away from Raven Creek with $78, one faded suitcase, and nowhere to go. Rain swept across the mountain highway so heavily that her headlights barely reached 30 feet ahead. At 22, she had already learned how quietly rejection could happen. Nobody had thrown her out into the road. Nobody needed to. The pack elders had simply explained that Raven Creek had limited resources, and an Omega, whose wolf could barely awaken, contributed too little to justify her place. Claire had stood through the conversation without crying. She even thanked them. That was the part she hated remembering most. She had spent years apologizing for being weaker, slower, different. When other wolves shifted for the first time, families celebrated. When Claire failed, people waited. When she failed again, they stopped waiting. By midnight, Raven Creek was 40 miles behind her. The gas gauge hovered near empty. Thunder rolled over the mountains, and a fallen pine blocked both lanes ahead. Claire stopped the car and rested her forehead against the steering wheel. Perfect, she whispered. Through the rain, she noticed a weathered wooden sign pointing toward an half a mile down a side road. Warm yellow light appeared between the trees. Claire followed it. The roadside inn looked older than the highway itself, with a stone chimney, 6 upstairs windows, and a porch shining beneath the rain. She carried her suitcase inside and was immediately wrapped in the smells of coffee, cedarwood, and smoke from a fireplace. The innkeeper barely looked up. Storm stranded you too? Claire nodded. Apparently. 1 room left. I will take it. She reached for her wallet. Then the front door opened behind her. Cold air swept through the lobby. Claire turned. A tall stranger stood beneath the doorway, rain darkening his hair and black coat. He looked close to 30, exhausted but strangely composed, as though storms were inconveniences rather than threats. His eyes found Claire's. Silver gray. Something inside her chest moved. Claire froze. For years, her wolf had been little more than a sleeping ember. Now it lifted its head. Awake. Alert. Drawn toward a man she had never seen before. The stranger seemed to feel something too. His expression changed for one heartbeat before control returned. The innkeeper straightened without explanation. Outside, somewhere beyond the rain and pine trees, a wolf howled. The stranger looked toward the sound, then back at Claire. Ethan, he said, offering only his first name. Claire had no idea that men lowered their eyes when he entered a room. She had no idea that kingdoms waited for his decisions. She knew only one impossible thing. Her wolf had finally awakened, and it had awakened for him. Claire realized she had been staring only when Ethan lowered his hand. "Sorry," she said automatically. His eyebrows drew together. "For what?" The question caught her off guard. Claire looked toward the registration desk. "For staring. You were not bothering me, right?" She reached for her wallet again. "Sorry." This time Ethan almost smiled. Claire noticed and immediately wished she had not. The innkeeper slid an old brass key across the counter. "Room 12. Road crew will not reach that fallen tree until morning." Claire counted the bills carefully, aware of how little money remained between herself and nowhere. Ethan stepped toward the desk but stopped several feet away, leaving her space. "Any other rooms?" he asked. The innkeeper shook his head. "Not unless you want the storage room." Ethan glanced toward the storm. "I have slept in worse places." There was nothing dramatic in the statement, yet the innkeeper studied him with an odd mixture of recognition and caution. Claire noticed that too. She picked up her suitcase before Ethan could offer assistance. Years at Raven Creek had taught her that accepting help usually came with a reminder of why she needed it. "There is coffee by the fireplace," the innkeeper said. "On the house until the power quits." Claire should have gone upstairs. Instead, thunder shook the windows, and she carried her suitcase toward an armchair near the fire. Ethan chose the chair opposite hers. He removed his wet coat and folded it with precise movements. Beneath it, he wore a dark charcoal shirt without any visible insignia. Nothing about him explained why Claire's wolf remained so intensely aware of his presence. "Traveling somewhere?" Ethan asked. Claire looked at her suitcase. "That obvious? You keep it close enough to grab without standing." Her fingers tightened around the handle. "You pay too much attention." "Habit? What kind of habit?" Ethan reached for the coffee the innkeeper had left nearby. "An inconvenient one." Claire gave him a skeptical look. "That sounds suspiciously like avoiding the question." "It probably is." For the first time that night, she laughed. The sound felt strange after the silence of her drive. Ethan looked at her, and something in his expression softened. Her wolf moved again. Claire's laughter died. Ethan noticed immediately. "What happened?" "Nothing." "You went still." "I said nothing happened." She hated how defensive she sounded. Ethan leaned back, deliberately creating more distance. "All right." No demand. No mocking smile. No alpha impatience. Claire studied him. "You are a wolf." "Yes." "Which pack?" His eyes moved briefly toward the dark window. "One farther north." "That is vague." Intentionally. Claire should have found his secrecy irritating. Instead, she understood it. Tonight she did not want to explain Raven Creek either. She did not want to hear herself called weak Omega one more time, even by someone who might say it kindly. "Fair enough," she murmured. Outside, another howl traveled through the rain. Ethan's posture changed. Only slightly. His shoulders straightened, and the exhaustion disappeared from his face. A second howl answered from farther down the mountain. Claire felt her wolf press forward with sudden attention. Ethan turned toward the window before the sound had fully faded. "Friends of yours?" Claire asked. "No." "Enemies?" "Not exactly. You really are terrible at answers." "I have been told that." Claire wrapped both hands around her coffee. "By people from your pack?" Ethan looked at her for a long moment. "By people who expect things from me." Something in his voice made her stop teasing. She knew what it meant to have expectations become a measure of worth. "And tonight?" she asked. "What do they expect tonight?" Ethan's silver-gray eyes met hers. "For me to be somewhere I do not want to be." Claire looked into the fire. "Then we have something in common." He waited. She surprised herself by continuing. "I left my pack today. By choice." The question was gentle, but it found the bruise anyway. Claire swallowed. "They called it mutual." Ethan said nothing. Somehow that silence was kinder than sympathy. "My wolf never developed the way they expected," Claire continued. "I cannot shift. Not properly. Eventually, everyone decided that meant I had less to offer." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Everyone. Enough people. And you believe them?" Claire stared into her coffee. "Some days." A log settled in the fireplace with a soft crack. Ethan leaned forward, forearms resting on his knees. "Your wolf does not feel absent." Claire's head snapped up. "You can feel her?" His expression told her he had revealed more than intended. "A little. Nobody can." "I can." Two simple words, spoken without pride. Claire's heartbeat quickened. Her wolf moved toward him again, stronger this time, almost reaching through her. Ethan inhaled slowly. His eyes sharpened. He felt it. Claire knew he did. What is happening? She whispered. Ethan looked toward the rain-darkened windows, then back at her. For the first time, the mysterious stranger seemed uncertain. I do not know. Claire almost believed him. Then footsteps approached the front porch through the storm. Ethan heard them before she did. He stood. The innkeeper emerged from behind the desk. 3 firm knocks sounded against the door. Ethan's face became unreadable. Stay by the fire, he told Claire. The words were quiet, but something beneath them made her wolf instantly alert. Claire rose anyway. You do not get to order me around. Ethan looked at her, and despite the tension, the faintest smile touched his mouth. Good. Another knock came. Ethan turned toward the door, and Claire understood one thing with absolute certainty. The man who called himself only. Ethan was hiding far more than his last name. The innkeeper opened the door only 3 inches, keeping one hand firmly on the frame. Cold rain sprayed across the floorboards. A man stood beneath the porch light wearing a dark waterproof jacket, his face partly shadowed by the hood. Road is closed, the innkeeper said. I know. The stranger looked past him. I am searching for someone. Claire felt Ethan become completely still beside her. The man outside continued. Tall, dark hair, traveling alone. Ethan's expression revealed nothing, but Claire's wolf reacted instantly, rising beneath her ribs with a warning she had never felt before. The innkeeper glanced toward Ethan for less than a second. It was enough. Nobody here matching that description, he said. Claire almost turned toward him. The lie had come easily. The visitor remained silent, apparently weighing the answer, then nodded. If anyone arrives, tell them the northern road will reopen after sunrise. I will. The door closed. The innkeeper locked it and drew the curtain across the glass. Ethan watched him. Thank you. The older man's shoulders straightened again. I did not do anything. Exactly. Something passed between them that Claire could not understand. She waited until the innkeeper disappeared into the back hallway. He was looking for you. Ethan returned to the fireplace. Probably. Claire followed. You matched every detail. So do thousands of men. Not thousands staying at this exact inn. Ethan picked up his coffee, discovered it had gone cold, and set it down again. Claire folded her arms. Are you in trouble? No. Are you dangerous? His eyes met hers immediately. Not to you. The certainty should have unsettled her. Instead, her wolf relaxed. Claire hated that her instincts trusted him faster than her mind did. That is not an answer either. It is the answer that matters. Thunder rolled farther away now. The storm was beginning to weaken, but the tension inside the room remained. Ethan crossed toward the window and carefully lifted one edge of the curtain. Claire watched the way he stood, balanced and controlled, listening to something beyond ordinary. Hearing. Then another distant howl moved through the trees. Ethan lowered the curtain. The sound stopped. Claire waited. Nothing followed. That happened before, she said. What? The wolves. Ethan turned. They were calling. You paid attention. Then they stopped. Coincidence. You do not believe in coincidence. A faint smile appeared. You learned that quickly. Claire stepped closer. And the innkeeper knows something about you. Ethan said nothing. He changes when you speak to him. That man at the door was looking for you. You can sense my wolf when nobody else can. Claire stopped several feet away. Who are you? For the first time, Ethan looked tired rather than secretive. Tonight. That is usually how time works. He almost laughed. Tonight, I would rather just be Ethan. Claire studied him. There was something strangely honest inside the refusal. Whoever he was outside this inn, he seemed exhausted by it. She understood that more than she wanted to. Fine, she said. Then tonight, I am just Claire. Ethan's gaze softened. What are you usually? The question reached deeper than he intended. Claire looked toward the fire. The omega who cannot shift. The girl people lower their expectations for before she even tries. The person everyone assumes needs help. That is what they call you. It is what I am. Those are different things. Claire looked back at him. Easy for you to say. Ethan accepted the challenge without offense. Probably. The answer surprised her. He moved toward the fireplace and sat again. What would you be if nobody already knew what to expect from you? Claire remained standing. Nobody had ever asked her that. I do not know. Guess. She considered it. I would have a small shop. Ethan waited. Herbs, maybe. My mother taught me about them before she died. Lavender, peppermint, chamomile. Things people overlook because they seem ordinary until they need them. Where? A quiet town. Mountains nearby. A farmer's market on Saturdays. Claire smiled faintly at the picture forming in her mind. An apartment upstairs. Enough money that I do not count every dollar before buying coffee. Ethan glanced at the mug in her hands. That last dream seems achievable. Claire laughed. Her wolf stirred warmly. Ethan's expression changed again. This time Claire refused to ignore it. You felt that. He remained silent. When I laughed, Ethan slowly nodded. Yes. Why? I do not know. You keep saying that. Because with you, it keeps being true. The honesty in his voice silenced her. Ethan looked into the fire. My turn. Claire sat opposite him. Your turn for what? The life nobody expects. He took a breath. A cabin near a lake. No meetings. No formal dinners. Nobody waiting outside a door because they need a decision. Claire smiled. That is surprisingly specific. I have had time to think about it. What would you do there? Repair things. Read. Walk through the woods without being followed. Claire remembered the visitor. You really are followed often. Ethan looked at her. More than I would like. The fireplace settled into a low amber glow. For several quiet seconds, neither spoke. Claire realized that whatever separated their lives outside this room, loneliness had made them strangely equal inside it. Then footsteps sounded upstairs. Ethan's head lifted before Claire heard them clearly. The innkeeper appeared at the staircase. Bad news. Roof is leaking over 2 rooms, and the lobby fireplace has to be shut down before I turn in. He held out the brass key Claire had paid for. Room 12 is the only dry room left. Claire glanced at Ethan. Ethan immediately stood. She can take it. The innkeeper shook his head. And you can freeze down here if you want, but I am locking the lobby. Claire looked at Ethan. Ethan looked back. Outside, the final rumble of thunder faded beyond the mountains. Claire's wolf moved toward him again, quiet but certain. For the first time that night, Ethan seemed less concerned about the people searching for him than about what sharing one small room with Claire might make impossible to keep hidden. Claire looked from the brass key to Ethan and wondered how one ordinary room had suddenly become more intimidating than the storm outside. There is only one bed, I assume, she said. The innkeeper gave her an apologetic nod. Queen bed. Chair by. The window. Extra blankets in the closet. Ethan reached for his coat. The chair is mine. Claire almost smiled. You decided that quickly. You paid for the room. And you are apparently terrible at accepting help. His silver-gray eyes held hers. That makes 2 of us. 10 minutes later, Claire unlocked room 12 and stepped into a space barely larger than the bedroom she had left behind in Raven Creek. A brass lamp cast warm light over faded blue wallpaper, a wooden dresser, 1 queen bed, and a narrow armchair beside a rain-streaked window. Ethan placed his coat across the chair and remained near the door as though waiting for permission to enter a room he had already been invited into. Claire set her suitcase beside the dresser. You can stop looking like you are trespassing. I am trying not to make you uncomfortable. You are doing a terrible job. His mouth curved. I seem to be terrible at several things tonight. Claire sat on the edge of the bed and removed her damp shoes. Ethan turned toward the window without being asked, giving her privacy even for that small act. She noticed. Raven Creek had taught her to expect people to decide what she needed. Ethan kept leaving the decision with her. You can sit down, she said. He took the chair. Rain tapped softly against the glass while silence settled between them, no longer awkward. Claire opened her suitcase and pulled out a worn gray sweater. Beneath it lay everything she owned now. 3 shirts, jeans, her mother's herb notebook, toiletries, and an envelope containing the last of her cash. Ethan's gaze stopped on the notebook. Your mother's? Claire nodded. She wrote down everything she knew. She handed it to him. Ethan accepted it carefully, turning the pages without touching the fragile pressed leaves tucked between them. She taught you well. She tried. Claire looked at the faded handwriting. After she died, people started deciding what was practical for me. Herbs were considered a hobby. Being useful to the pack was supposed to matter more. Ethan closed the notebook. And now nobody gets to decide. The words came out stronger than she expected. Ethan handed the book back. Good. Claire studied him. You say that like you know what it feels like. His gaze moved toward the rain. Imagine waking every morning with a room full of people already waiting for your answer. About what? Everything. That sounds exhausting. It is. Then say no. Ethan gave a quiet laugh, without humor. Sometimes responsibility does not care what you want. Claire tucked the notebook away. That sounds like something important people say. He looked at her sharply. She smiled. Relax. I still do not know who you are. Good. That is a suspicious response. Probably. The lamp flickered once as the storm moved farther into the mountains. Claire pulled one of the spare blankets from the closet and tossed it toward him. Ethan caught it easily. Your luxurious accommodations. I have seen worse. You said that downstairs. Still true. Claire climbed beneath the bed cover while Ethan settled into the narrow chair, his long legs making the arrangement almost ridiculous. Ethan, yes. Why did that man come looking for you? A pause followed. Because I left somewhere without permission. Claire raised an eyebrow. You? Apparently, I also dislike being told where I belong. She understood the answer beneath the answer. Then maybe tonight neither of us belongs anywhere. Ethan looked at her. Maybe that is not the worst thing. The room became quiet again. Claire should have slept, but her wolf remained awake, calm whenever Ethan was near and restless whenever she imagined morning. Can I ask you something strange? She whispered. You have been doing that all evening. Why can you feel my wolf? Ethan stared at the ceiling. I have met thousands of wolves. Thousands. That sounded less suspicious in my head. Claire laughed softly. Ethan continued. Some are powerful. Some are quiet. Some never shift easily. But yours does not feel weak. Claire swallowed. Everyone else says she is. Everyone else is wrong. No hesitation. No pity. Claire turned onto her side to face him. You cannot know that after a few hours. Ethan looked back at her from the chair. I know what I felt when I walked through that door. Her heartbeat changed. What did you feel? For several seconds he said nothing. Recognition. Claire's wolf rose beneath her ribs at the word. Warmth spread through her chest. Unfamiliar, but peaceful. Ethan felt it too. His breath caught, almost imperceptibly. Neither of them looked away. Eventually Claire whispered, Come sit here. That chair is going to ruin your back. Ethan hesitated before moving to the far edge of the bed, leaving careful space between them. They talked until the rain became a whisper, about her imaginary herb shop, his imaginary cabin, bad coffee, quiet mornings, and all the lives people might choose if nobody chose for them first. Claire could not remember when exhaustion finally softened her guard. She only remembered that, for once, she did not feel unwanted. Whatever tenderness followed belonged only to them, private, gentle, and unhurried, before the night faded peacefully toward sleep. In the darkness, Claire felt Ethan carefully pull the blanket higher over her shoulder. Claire, he whispered, as though testing whether her name could become something precious. Half asleep, she smiled. She did not know that before sunrise, duty would come looking for him again. She did not know that morning would leave a silver ring, a message he never wrote, and 7 years of silence between them. Claire woke to sunlight instead of rain and knew something was wrong before she opened her eyes. The room was too quiet. The chair beside the window was empty. Ethan's black coat was gone. For one foolish second, she expected to hear water running in the bathroom or his footsteps in the hallway. Ethan. Nothing answered. Claire sat up, pulling the blanket around her shoulders as the memory of the night returned in soft fragments. Rain against the glass, quiet laughter, his voice telling her that her wolf was not weak, the strange comfort of being seen without being measured. She looked toward the door. His shoes were gone too. Her chest tightened. On the dresser sat a silver ring she had never seen before. Claire crossed the room and picked it up. It was heavier than an ordinary ring, marked with a black wolf inside a thin crescent moon. Beneath it lay a folded piece of cream-colored paper. Her name was not written anywhere. She unfolded it anyway. Morning changes everything. Do not look for me. Claire read the words twice. Then a third time. The room seemed colder despite the sunlight. Her wolf, so awake around Ethan only hours earlier, retreated into a silence that hurt more than Claire expected. She sat on the edge of the bed with the note between her fingers. Of course, she should have understood. Ethan had never offered a last name. He had avoided every question about his life. Someone had come searching for him in the middle of the storm. Whatever world he belonged to, Claire had been one quiet night outside it. Nothing more. She folded the note carefully because tearing it would have admitted how much it mattered. Downstairs, the innkeeper was carrying coffee mugs toward the kitchen. He stopped when Claire approached. Did Ethan leave? The older man's expression changed. Before sunrise. Did he say anything? A hesitation. Too long. He had somewhere he needed to be. Claire waited for more. None came. Was he alone? The innkeeper looked toward the front window. You should probably get back on the road while the weather is clear. Claire understood dismissal when she heard it. She had spent years becoming fluent in it. Right. She paid for a cup of coffee she barely touched, carried her suitcase outside, and loaded it into her aging sedan. The fallen pine had been cleared from the highway. By 8 o'clock, she was driving west. She did not look back. 3 weeks later, in a small town nearly 200 miles from Raven Creek, Claire stood beneath the fluorescent lights of a drugstore restroom and stared at two unmistakable lines. Her hands went cold. She checked the instructions again, even though they were simple. Then she bought another test. Same answer. Claire sat in her car afterward with both hands resting on the steering wheel. Fear arrived first. Money, housing, work, no pack, no family. Then came Ethan. She opened the glove compartment where she had hidden the silver ring and folded note. Do not look for me. The words made the decision for her. She would not. Whatever Ethan had returned to, he had chosen it without her. Claire placed one trembling hand over her abdomen. Then it is you and me, she whispered. Her wolf stirred faintly, not with fear, but with something protective. Months passed. Claire found Cedar Falls almost by accident, a mountain town with brick storefronts, a Saturday farmer's market, and an elderly woman named Margaret Hale who needed help running a small herbal shop. Claire knew lavender from sage by scent alone. She knew which tea soothed an unsettled stomach and how much peppermint oil was too much. Margaret hired her before lunch. For the first time, Claire's knowledge was treated as useful rather than decorative. She rented the apartment above the shop. She saved every dollar she could. She stopped waiting for Raven Creek to ask her back. On a cold November morning, Lucas Bennett entered the world with a quiet cry and one tiny fist curled beneath his chin. Claire held him against her chest and forgot every fear she had rehearsed. Hello, Lucas, she whispered. He opened his eyes. Silver gray. Claire stopped breathing. Ethan's eyes. There was no question. A nurse smiled beside her. He has a little birthmark too. Claire looked down. On Lucas's left wrist rested a pale crescent, delicate enough to resemble moonlight beneath his skin. Claire touched it gently. Her wolf stirred. She told herself it meant nothing. 7 years would pass before she learned how wrong she was. 7 years taught Claire that survival rarely looked dramatic. Most mornings, it looked like opening the herbal shop at 7:30, turning the wooden sign from closed to open, and reminding Lucas that cinnamon rolls were not a complete breakfast. They have flour, Lucas argued one Thursday morning. Claire arranged glass jars of chamomile along the shelf. So does wallpaper paste. You are still eating eggs. Lucas made a face from his stool behind the counter. At 7 years old, he had Ethan's silver gray eyes, Claire's chestnut brown hair, and an ability to negotiate almost anything except bedtime. Cedar Falls knew him as Claire Bennett's bright, unusually observant son. Nobody knew who his father was. Claire preferred it that way. The silver ring and farewell note remained inside a wooden box beneath winter blankets in her bedroom upstairs. She had not touched either in almost 3 years. She no longer needed them to remember. Lucas did that without trying. Sometimes he tilted his head while listening, and Claire saw Ethan beside that old fireplace. Sometimes he smiled slowly before saying something clever, and 7 years disappeared for half a heartbeat. But Lucas was not a memory. He was his own person. Claire had built her life around making certain he knew that. Mom, Lucas said suddenly. The bakery timer is going off. Claire glanced toward the wall, separating her shop from the bookstore next door. The bakery is half a block away. I know. A few seconds later, through the open front door, Claire faintly heard the bakery owner calling that another batch was ready. She stopped arranging jars. Lucas noticed. What? Nothing. You make that face when something is not nothing. Claire smiled despite herself. Finish breakfast. His hearing had sharpened over the past year. At first, she blamed childhood imagination. Then Lucas began identifying customers by their footsteps before they reached the door. He could hear Margaret's old station wagon turning onto Main Street before Claire noticed the engine. Once, he had covered his ears seconds before a pickup truck gave a sharp backfire outside, explaining afterward that he had heard the engine sputtering strangely first. None of it frightened him. It frightened Claire enough for both of them. Her own wolf remained unusually quiet except when Lucas's abilities surfaced. Then it stirred with the same alertness Claire remembered from one stormy night 7 years earlier. The bell above the shop door chimed. Margaret Hale entered carrying a paper cup and the morning newspaper. At 71, she had officially retired from the shop and unofficially continued supervising everything Claire did. Town council meeting changed again, Margaret announced. Apparently we have important visitors. Claire continued labeling a jar. How important? Margaret unfolded the newspaper. Royal delegation important. Claire's hand stopped. What? Northern Territory has been reporting unusual pack disturbances. Nothing dangerous, according to the council, but enough that the Crown sent people to inspect the boundary. Claire forced herself to breathe normally. The Crown was distant. Ethan had never told her enough for her to connect him to any specific royal household. 7 years had passed. This meant nothing. Margaret continued. They arrived this afternoon. Lucas looked up from his eggs. Will there be guards? Probably, Margaret said. Cars? Definitely. The king. Margaret tapped the newspaper. According to this, yes. Alpha King Ethan Blackwood himself. The jar slipped from Claire's fingers. Margaret caught it against the counter before it fell. Claire. The room seemed to narrow around one name. Ethan. Claire stared at the newspaper. A photograph occupied the lower half of the page. The man was older now, his face sharper, his expression controlled beneath formal black clothing. But those eyes were unchanged. Silver gray. Claire could not hear Margaret speaking anymore. 7 years collapsed into rain, cedar smoke, warm coffee, and a stranger saying he wanted one night where nobody expected anything from him. Mom. Lucas climbed down from his stool. Claire looked at her son, then at the photograph. Same eyes. The realization was not new, but the name beneath Ethan's face made everything else new. Alpha King Ethan Blackwood. The stranger had not merely hidden his last name. He had hidden a kingdom. Claire closed the newspaper. Margaret, can you watch the shop? Of course. Where are you going? Upstairs. Claire took the steps 2 at a time. In her bedroom, she pulled the wooden box from beneath the blankets and opened it. The silver signet lay beside the folded note exactly where she had left them. She lifted the ring toward the window. For the first time, she truly examined the symbol engraved into it, a black wolf surrounded by a thin crescent moon. Her gaze returned to the newspaper photograph she had carried upstairs. The same crest rested over Ethan's heart. Claire's wolf surged awake so suddenly that she gripped the dresser. Down on Main Street, engines began approaching from the eastern road. Not one vehicle, several. Claire heard Lucas call from downstairs. Mom, they are here. She closed her fingers around the ring. 7 years ago, Ethan had disappeared before sunrise. Now the Alpha King was driving directly into the town where she had raised his son. Claire reached the bottom of the stairs just as the first black vehicle rolled onto Main Street. Lucas stood near the front window with both hands pressed against the glass, watching 3 polished sport utility vehicles move slowly between the brick storefronts. People stepped outside the bakery, bookstore, and diner. Conversations faded. Even Margaret stopped pretending to organize the counter. Claire slipped the silver signet into her sweater pocket and crossed the shop. Lucas, come away from the window. He turned immediately. Why? Because I asked you to. His eyebrows lifted. Claire almost never used that answer. He noticed. Of course he noticed. Do you know the king? Claire's heartbeat stumbled. Why would you ask that? Lucas pointed toward the folded newspaper. You looked at his picture like you forgot how to breathe. Margaret quietly moved toward the back room, granting Claire privacy without being asked. Claire crouched until she was level with her son. There are things I need to explain to you, but not here and not yet. Lucas studied her face with those silver gray eyes. Is he my father? The question struck with such precision that Claire could only stare. Lucas looked down. I am not stupid, Mom. I know. You never talk about my dad. Then you saw that man and got scared. I am not scared of him. The answer came too quickly. Lucas tilted his head. Outside, car doors opened. Claire's wolf surged beneath her ribs. She had felt that exact pull only once before. 7 years had not weakened it. Stay close to me, she whispered. Lucas nodded. Claire took his hand and stepped outside. Mountain air carried the scent of pine, coffee, and approaching rain. Dozens of townspeople had gathered along the sidewalks. At the center of the street, 2 royal attendants emerged first. Then the rear door of the middle vehicle opened. Ethan stepped out. Claire forgot every speech she had imagined. He wore a tailored black coat with a silver wolf and crescent crest over his heart. His dark hair was shorter than she remembered. Time had sharpened the lines around his eyes and added authority to a face that had once looked tired beside a roadside fireplace. Yet Claire recognized him before both feet touched the pavement. Her wolf pressed forward with one undeniable certainty. Him. Around her, wolves lowered their heads. Some bowed. Claire remained standing. Ethan spoke briefly to a town official, but halfway through the man's welcome, Ethan stopped listening. His head turned. His eyes found Claire. The street seemed to disappear. 7 years vanished from his expression so completely that Claire saw the stranger again. Ethan did not smile. He simply stared as though the person he had stopped expecting to find had appeared in front of him. "Your Majesty?" the official prompted. Ethan barely seemed to hear him. He took one step toward Claire, then another. A royal attendant moved as if to follow. Ethan lifted one hand without looking back, and the man stopped immediately. Claire's fingers tightened around Lucas's. Ethan crossed the street alone. Every instinct told Claire to retreat into the shop, lock the door, and protect the life she had built. She stayed. Ethan stopped 6 feet away. His gaze moved over her face with quiet disbelief. Claire. Hearing her name and his voice hurt more than she expected. Ethan. Several people nearby looked startled that she had addressed their king without a title. Ethan did not seem to care. "I looked for you." Claire felt something cold move through her. "Do not." His brow furrowed. "Do not what?" "Do not stand here after 7 years and say that." Confusion replaced disbelief. "Claire, I went back." Her hand closed around the signet inside her pocket. "You left a message." Ethan's expression changed. "What message?" Before Claire could answer, Lucas shifted beside her. Ethan's attention dropped toward the movement. The moment his eyes reached the boy, everything in his face went still. Lucas stared back openly. Same silver-gray eyes. Same dark lashes. Even the slight crease between their brows was painfully similar. Ethan looked at Claire, then Lucas, then back at Claire. She could almost see him counting years. "Mom," Lucas whispered. "Who is he?" Claire's throat tightened. Ethan heard the word. "Mom." His gaze returned to Lucas. The boy stood close enough now for Ethan to notice the pale crescent on his left wrist where his sleeve had slipped upward. Ethan's face lost color. "How old is he?" Claire did not answer. Ethan stepped half a pace closer, then stopped himself. His voice lowered until it belonged not to a king, but to the man from the storm. "Claire, how old is your son?" Lucas answered for her. 7. Silence spread between them. Ethan closed his eyes for one brief second. When he opened them, shock had given way to something deeper, something Claire was not ready to name. Lucas looked between them again. "Mom." Claire placed both hands on her son's shoulders. Ethan stared at the boy as though 7 missing years had suddenly taken human form. Then his eyes returned to Claire. "Tell me," he whispered, "that I am wrong." Claire could have lied. For one terrible second, she wanted to. A single no might have pushed Ethan back behind the walls of his royal life and returned Cedar Falls to the quiet place it had been that morning. Then Lucas looked up at her, waiting, and Claire knew she would not build his future on the same kind of silence that had shaped her past. "We are not doing this in the street," she said. Ethan glanced at the watching townspeople and immediately understood. He turned toward one of his attendants. "Continue the boundary meeting without me." The man hesitated. "Your Majesty, the council is waiting." Ethan's expression barely changed. "Then they can begin." Nobody argued again. Claire led Lucas inside the herbal shop. Ethan followed only after she held the door open for him. Margaret took one look at Claire's face and quietly disappeared into the back room. The bell above the door settled into silence. Lucas climbed onto his usual stool, while Claire remained standing behind the counter. Ethan stopped several feet away. In the warm light of the shop, his title somehow seemed less powerful. He was simply the man who had once sat across from her, beside a fireplace, and told her that her wolf was not weak. 7. Ethan said softly. Claire folded her arms. "Yes." His eyes moved toward Lucas. "When is his birthday?" "November 18th. Ethan went still. Claire watched the answer land. Lucas looked between them. Why does my birthday matter? Neither adult spoke immediately. Lucas frowned. Mom, you said you would explain. Claire drew a slow breath. I will. Ethan looked at her. Claire, is he my son? She had imagined this moment many times during Lucas's first year. In every version, Ethan was absent. Now he stood less than 10 feet away, looking more frightened by her answer than any king had a right to look. Yes, she said. The word changed the room. Ethan lowered his gaze for a moment. His hands remained at his sides, but Claire saw his fingers curl slightly, as though he needed something solid to hold. Lucas stared at him. You are my dad. Ethan looked toward the boy, but he did not move closer. It appears that I am. Lucas considered this with unnerving seriousness. Did you know about me? No. Claire heard the certainty in Ethan's voice. I did not know. Lucas looked at her. Claire felt the old note inside her memory like a paper cut that had never completely healed. He left before I knew I was pregnant. Ethan's eyes snapped toward her. I came back. You left a note telling me not to look for you. What note? Claire almost laughed, but there was no humor in her. Do not do that. Claire, I am asking because I do not know what you mean. She reached into her pocket and placed the silver signet on the counter between them. Ethan stared at it. Recognition was immediate. Where did you get that? Beside the bed. Under your goodbye. Ethan stepped closer to the counter without touching the ring. I did not leave this there. Claire's pulse quickened. It is yours. Yes. Then stop pretending. I am not pretending. His voice remained controlled, but something beneath it had sharpened. I had that signet with me when I arrived at the inn. I discovered it missing later. Claire felt the room tilt slightly. The note said, "Mourning changes everything. Do not look for me." Ethan stared at her. Not guilt. Not recognition. Nothing. I never wrote that. Claire searched his face for the smallest sign of deception. 7 years of anger demanded she find one. Her wolf found none. Then why were you gone? She whispered. Ethan looked toward Lucas before answering. Before dawn, I was summoned north. There was an emergency involving 3 packs and a council dispute that could not wait. I left because I believed I would be back. You did not wake me. I tried. His voice softened. You were exhausted. I told the innkeeper I was returning. Claire remembered the older man's hesitation. His refusal to answer clearly. When? She asked. Ethan's jaw tightened. 3 days later. Claire stared at him. 3 days. The road reopened sooner, but the council did not release me. He paused. When I returned, you were gone. Lucas had become completely silent. Claire barely noticed. You could have found me. I tried. You did not even know my last name. I knew Claire. I knew Raven Creek. I knew you were driving west. Her breath caught. She had never told him she came from Raven Creek. Ethan saw the realization. The innkeeper told me after you left. Claire's anger shifted beneath her feet, losing the shape she had carried for 7 years. How long did you look? Ethan's eyes held hers. Long enough to learn there were hundreds of women named Claire across the Western Territories, and none of them were you. The answer was not complete. Claire knew it. So did he. But before she could ask more, Lucas slid down from the stool. So nobody left anybody? The simplicity of the question silenced them both. Claire looked at the ring on the counter. Ethan looked at the son he had never known existed. Someone left that note, Claire said quietly. Ethan's gaze dropped to the signet. Yes. Someone who had your ring. Yes. Claire felt her wolf rise, no longer drawn only toward Ethan, but alert to something darker in the unanswered years between them. Ethan finally reached for the signet, turning it beneath the shop light. His expression changed. Claire, whoever left this did not simply want you to think I was gone. He looked at Lucas. They wanted me to believe you had chosen to disappear too. Lucas stared at Ethan for several seconds, then looked at Claire. If somebody wanted both of you to think the other person left, why? Claire wished she had an answer simple enough for a 7-year-old. She had none. Ethan placed the signet carefully on the counter. That is what we need to find out. Lucas frowned. Who would know where you were? Ethan's eyes sharpened slightly. Claire saw the Alpha King return behind the stranger she remembered. Very few people. How few? Claire asked. My closest staff knew I had left the capital. Fewer knew where I stopped during the storm. Claire folded her arms. And someone found you that night. Ethan nodded. Yes. The man at the inn. He worked for people connected to the Northern Council. At least, that was what I believed. Lucas tilted his head suddenly. His attention shifted toward the front window. There are people outside. Claire glanced toward the glass. Several royal attendants stood on the sidewalk, keeping a respectful distance from the shop. They are with Ethan. Lucas looked at him. Do they always follow you? More often than I would like. Lucas considered that. That sounds annoying. A quiet laugh escaped Claire before she could stop it. Ethan looked at her, and for one heartbeat the tension eased. Then the bell above the door chimed. A broad-shouldered man in a dark suit stepped inside, but remained near the entrance. Your Majesty, the council is asking whether you will return. Ethan did not look away from Claire. Tell them I need another 15 minutes. Yes, Your Majesty. The man started to leave, then noticed Lucas. His expression changed. Not dramatically, just enough. His gaze lingered on the boy's silver-gray eyes. Lucas noticed too. Why is he looking at me? The attendant immediately lowered his eyes. Ethan turned. Daniel. The man stopped. He is a child. Treat him like one. Of course. Daniel stepped outside and closed the door. Claire looked at Ethan. He sees it. Ethan did not pretend otherwise. The resemblance is difficult to miss. Lucas climbed back onto the stool. So everyone is going to know? Claire's chest tightened. She moved beside him. Nobody gets to decide what happens next without us. Ethan met her gaze. Agreed. Claire had expected resistance. The absence of it unsettled her almost as much. Just like that. No, nothing about this is just like that. His voice softened. But he has known me for less than an hour. I will not turn his life into a royal announcement. Lucas looked relieved. Then voices rose outside as more townspeople gathered near the delegation. Claire could hear only fragments through the glass. Lucas apparently heard much more. His face tightened. They are talking about Mom. Claire touched his shoulder. Ignore them. They said she hid me. Lucas. She did not hide me. His breathing quickened. Ethan remained where he was, careful not to crowd him. People talk when they do not understand something, he said. Lucas looked toward the window again. They are saying you should take me. Claire felt her wolf surge. Ethan's expression hardened. No one is taking you anywhere. They think Mom did something wrong. She did not. Lucas slid from the stool. They should stop. Claire reached for him, but the boy stepped toward the front of the shop. Through the glass, several wolves were speaking near the sidewalk. Nobody appeared threatening, only curious, but Lucas's small hands had curled at his sides. Lucas, come back to me, Claire said gently. He turned toward her, caught between anger and confusion. Why do they get to talk about you like that? Because they do not know the truth. Then tell them. Not yet. His eyes brightened with frustrated tears. Make them stop. Claire moved closer. Lucas, look at me. But the voices outside rose again. Lucas squeezed his eyes shut. Something changed in the room. Claire felt it first as pressure in the air, not painful, but unmistakable. Ethan straightened. His wolf responded instantly. Lucas opened his eyes and faced the doorway. Stop. One word. Quiet. Clear. Outside, every nearby wolf fell silent at once. Daniel froze halfway through turning toward another attendant. Two local pack members stopped speaking in the middle of a sentence. Even Ethan's breath caught. Claire stared at her son. Lucas looked around, confused by the sudden silence. What happened? He whispered. Ethan moved one careful step closer. His face had gone pale. Claire. She could barely answer. What? Ethan's gaze remained fixed on Lucas. That was an alpha command. Claire shook her head. He is 7. I know. He has never shifted. That does not matter. Lucas looked between them. What is an alpha command? Ethan crouched several feet away, so they were closer to eye level. It means your wolf asked other wolves to listen. Lucas frowned. I just wanted them to stop talking about Mom. Ethan's expression softened with something close to wonder. Apparently your wolf agreed. Claire's hand found Lucas's shoulder. Beneath her palm, she felt him trembling slightly. Is something wrong with him? Ethan looked up immediately. No. The answer was absolute. Nothing is wrong with him. Claire remembered hearing similar words from Ethan 7 years earlier about her own wolf. Her throat tightened. Then Lucas rubbed his left wrist. Mom, it feels warm. Claire looked down. The pale crescent she had called a birthmark since the day he was born was beginning to glow beneath his skin. Thin silver lines slowly appeared around it. Ethan rose so quickly that Claire instinctively drew Lucas closer. He stopped immediately. I am not going to touch him. His eyes remained on the mark. But I know that symbol. Claire's heartbeat accelerated. What is it? Ethan stared at the silver crescent as recognition replaced shock. When he finally answered, his voice was almost a whisper. That is not a birthmark. Claire stared at the silver lines spreading around Lucas's wrist and felt 7 years of certainty begin to collapse. Then what is it? Ethan did not answer immediately. He moved closer, but stopped several feet away and lowered himself until he was level with Lucas. May I see your wrist? Lucas looked at Claire first. She nodded. Only then did he extend his arm. Ethan kept his hands to himself. A royal seal, he said quietly. Claire's stomach tightened. Explain. Ethan studied the crescent. Centuries ago, certain royal children were given protective seals when their abilities appeared too early. The seal did not remove their power. It kept that power quiet until they were old enough to control it. Lucas looked at his wrist. So this has been making my wolf quiet? Possibly. Since I was a baby? Ethan's eyes lifted toward Claire. How long has the mark been there? Since the day he was born. The answer changed Ethan's expression. You are certain? A nurse pointed it out while I was holding him. Claire remembered the hospital room, the blue blanket, Lucas's tiny fist, and that pale crescent resting against newborn skin. I thought it was a birthmark. Ethan slowly stood. The old seals were not random symbols. They were keyed to specific royal bloodlines. Whoever placed one on Lucas had to know which bloodline he carried. Claire felt cold despite the warmth of the shop. You were saying someone knew he was your son when he was a newborn. I am saying someone knew he carried Blackwood blood. You did not know. No. I told nobody who his father was. Ethan's gaze sharpened. Did anyone ever see the signet? Claire thought back through those first months in Cedar Falls. Margaret knew I had a ring from his father, but I never showed it to her. Nobody else even knew that much. Lucas rubbed the crescent again. The glow dimmed slightly. Am I in trouble? Claire immediately knelt beside him. No. Ethan answered at the same time. Lucas looked between them. Claire placed both hands around his smaller one. You did nothing wrong. Ethan nodded. Your ability surprised everyone. That is all. Lucas studied him. Did you do things like that when you were 7? A faint smile touched Ethan's face. No. At 7, I was mostly being reminded to sit still during lessons. Lucas seemed disappointed. So I am weird. Different, Ethan corrected. There is a difference. Claire looked at him. He had said almost the same thing to her 7 years earlier without ever using the word. Something inside her softened despite every unanswered question. The bell above the shop door chimed. Daniel stepped inside, then stopped when he noticed the glowing mark. His professional expression disappeared. Your Majesty. Ethan turned. Close the door. Daniel did so immediately. His eyes returned to Lucas's wrist. Is that what I think it is? Yes. Daniel lowered his voice. But those seals have not been used in generations. Claire stood. You know about them too? Daniel nodded carefully. Only from royal archives. Ethan looked toward him. And the method? Restricted knowledge. Claire's pulse quickened. Restricted to whom? Daniel hesitated. Ethan answered instead. Historically, the royal household and a small number of ceremonial keepers. Claire stared at Lucas. The mystery had suddenly grown beyond a forged goodbye. Then someone connected to your household got close to my baby. Ethan's face tightened. Possibly. No. Do not make it smaller than it is. Claire stepped between Lucas and the two royal men. Someone knew enough about you to leave your ring beside me. Someone knew enough to write a message that made me leave. Then someone knew enough about Lucas to place this on him. Ethan did not argue. You are right. The simple admission stopped her. I need to know who had access to my movements 7 years ago, he continued. And who could have known where you went afterward? Claire shook her head. Nobody followed me to Cedar Falls. You cannot know that. I would have noticed. Ethan's expression remained gentle. Claire, you were pregnant, alone, starting over, and trying to survive. Someone determined enough could have watched without giving you a reason to look. The possibility unsettled her more than she wanted to show. Lucas quietly slipped his hand into hers. Ethan saw it and stepped back, giving them space. Daniel looked toward the front window. Your Majesty, the council will notice your absence soon. Let them. The northern disturbances may be connected. Ethan's gaze shifted toward him. Connected to what? Daniel glanced at Lucas. The reports began with wolves responding to commands no recognized alpha had given. Silence filled the shop. Claire felt Lucas's fingers tighten around hers. Ethan looked at the crescent, then toward the mountains beyond the window. The boundary investigation had brought him to Cedar Falls. Lucas's power had awakened the same day. Claire suddenly wondered whether Ethan finding them had ever been an accident. "The note," Ethan said. "Do you still have it?" Claire nodded slowly. "Upstairs. I need to see it." "Why?" Ethan looked from Lucas's fading seal to the silver signet resting on the counter. "Because if someone separated us before Lucas was born and then sealed his bloodline afterward, the lie they left in that room may be the first mistake they made." Claire heard the words, but her mind refused to accept them. Someone had known. Not guessed. Not suspected. Known. She looked down at Lucas, who was studying the fading crescent on his wrist with more curiosity than fear. That steadied her. Whatever mystery surrounded his birth, he was still the boy who forgot his backpack twice a week and believed cinnamon rolls counted as breakfast. "Lucas," Claire said gently, "would you go upstairs for a few minutes?" He looked immediately suspicious. "Why?" "Because Ethan and I need to talk about something from before you were born." "Is it about me?" Claire refused to lie. "Partly." Lucas considered this, then looked at Ethan. "Are you staying?" Ethan nodded. "If your mother allows me." Lucas turned back to Claire. "Then I will be upstairs." He took 3 steps before stopping. "Do not make decisions about me without telling me." Ethan's eyebrows lifted slightly. Claire almost smiled. "Deal." Lucas disappeared up the staircase. When his bedroom door closed, Claire turned toward Ethan. "The ring and the note are upstairs." Ethan's expression sharpened. "Bring them down." Claire climbed the stairs and entered her bedroom. The wooden keepsake box waited behind the winter blankets exactly where she had left it. For 7 years, she had treated it like a grave for a memory she refused to bury completely. She carried it downstairs and placed it on the counter. Ethan stood opposite her. Daniel remained near the rear door, but Ethan quietly asked him to give them privacy. Once they were alone, Claire opened the box. The silver signet caught the afternoon light. Ethan stared at it. "That is mine." Claire lifted the folded paper beneath it. "And this?" Ethan did not touch the note immediately. "Read it." Her throat tightened. "Morning changes everything. Do not look for me." Ethan's face went still. "I never wrote those words." Claire handed him the paper. He studied the handwriting for several seconds. Then his eyes narrowed. "I have seen this writing before." Claire felt cold. "Whose?" "I cannot place it yet." He turned the note toward the light. "But this was written by someone who had access to my household." "How can you know that?" Ethan pointed toward a tiny indentation near the bottom of the paper. "Royal correspondence paper carried a pressed watermark 7 years ago. Most people would never notice it." Claire leaned closer. Beneath the fibers was the faint shape of a crescent surrounding a wolf. Her stomach tightened. "So whoever wrote this had royal stationery." "Yes." "And your ring?" "Yes." Claire stared at him. "Tell me exactly what happened that morning." Ethan placed the note down carefully. Before dawn, Daniel and 2 royal guards reached the inn. There had been a succession dispute among 3 northern packs, and my presence was required in the capital before the council convened. "You left without waking me." Regret crossed his face. "I tried. You were exhausted. I told the innkeeper I would return." Claire remembered the man's strange hesitation when she asked whether Ethan had left alone. "He knew who you were." He recognized Daniel. Ethan paused. "I returned 3 days later." Claire looked away. Hearing it again hurt differently now. "And I was gone. Your room had been cleared. The innkeeper said you drove west. I had no last name for you, no pack I could safely contact, and no destination." His voice lowered. "I searched anyway." Claire's eyes returned to him. "For how long?" "Months." One word. 7 years of certainty cracked around it. Ethan continued. "We checked pack registries, hotels, and every employment record we could legally trace through the Western Territories. Nothing led to you." Claire understood why. Cedar Falls had no formal pack registry for independent Omegas, and Margaret had hired her privately. She had unknowingly disappeared into the exact kind of ordinary life she had wanted. "I thought you had decided that." "One night was enough," Ethan said. Claire swallowed. "I thought you had decided I was a mistake." His eyes closed briefly. When they opened, the distance between Alpha King and stranger seemed to vanish. "Never." Claire looked at the forged note between them. For 7 years, she had been angry at a man who had returned. For 7 years, Ethan had searched for a woman who believed he had ordered her to disappear. Neither had abandoned the other. Someone had simply made sure they believed they had. "The timing," Claire whispered. Ethan understood immediately. Whoever left this knew I had been called away, and knew where you spent the night. Yes. Claire looked toward the ceiling, toward Lucas. Then years later, someone had access to my newborn son. Ethan followed her gaze. His expression changed. Claire, where was Lucas born? Cedar Falls Community Hospital. Who knew the father's identity? No one. She stopped. I never told anyone your name because I did not know it. Ethan looked down at the royal signet. You did not need to. Claire's breath caught. The ring. If someone knew you had it, they could have connected you to me. The realization moved through her like winter air. Ethan picked up the forged note again, studying the handwriting with renewed concentration. Then his face changed. Recognition. Claire saw it before he spoke. You remember. Ethan slowly raised his eyes to hers. Yes. Who wrote it? His answer came quietly. A man who worked inside my royal household 7 years ago. Claire did not ask the name immediately. She watched Ethan stare at the forged note as those 7 lost years had suddenly become something he could hold between his fingers. Outside, Cedar Falls continued with its ordinary afternoon. A delivery truck rolled past the window. Someone laughed near the bakery. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked beneath Lucas's footsteps. Those familiar sounds made the truth feel even stranger. Who was he? Claire finally asked. Ethan placed the paper carefully on the counter. Charles Vane. He served as an assistant to my royal secretary. Someone important? Important enough to know my schedule. Unimportant enough that people rarely noticed him. Claire looked at the handwriting again. And you are certain? I signed documents he prepared for almost 4 years. I saw his handwriting every week. Ethan's gaze hardened with concentration. He also had access to royal correspondence paper. And your signet? Not normally. Then how did he get it? Ethan turned the ring over in his palm. That is what concerns me. Claire folded her arms, fighting the cold gathering beneath her skin. Where is Charles now? He resigned less than 2 months after that night. You never wondered why. People leave royal service. At the time, there was no reason to connect his resignation to you. Ethan paused. I did not even know he knew you existed. Claire looked toward the ceiling again. But if he wrote that note, he did. Yes. And if he knew about Lucas? She could not finish. Ethan stepped closer but stopped on the other side of the counter. We do not know that Charles placed the seal. Claire appreciated that he did not pretend certainty where none existed. But somebody did. Yes. She pressed her fingertips against the wood. She remembered Lucas as a newborn, impossibly small beneath a blue hospital blanket. She remembered waking whenever he made the slightest sound. Nurses had entered and left. Doctors had checked him. Margaret had visited with flowers and enough food for a week. Nothing had seemed wrong. I should have noticed. Ethan's expression changed instantly. Claire, you believed it was a birthmark because you had no reason to believe otherwise. She looked at him. Someone got close enough to my baby to place a royal seal on him. Then we find out who. No command. No royal declaration. Just a promise spoken quietly enough to belong to Ethan rather than the king. I will investigate Charles, he continued. Quietly. I also want the hospital records, but only with your permission. Claire studied him. You are asking? Lucas is your son. A shadow crossed his face. And mine, apparently, but I have been his father for less than an afternoon. I have not earned the right to enter his life and start making decisions. Claire had expected authority from the Alpha King. She had not expected restraint. He is going to have questions. So am I. He may be angry. He is allowed. He may not want you here tomorrow. Ethan was silent for a moment. Then I will give him space tomorrow and try again when he is ready. Footsteps came down the stairs. Lucas appeared carrying a green hardcover book. Are you finished talking about me? Claire almost smiled. For now. Lucas walked to the counter and looked at the ring. Is that his? Yes, Claire said. I found it a long time ago. Lucas looked at Ethan. Why did Mom have your ring? Ethan glanced at Claire before answering. Because someone left it where she would find it. Was it you? No. Lucas absorbed this. So somebody wanted Mom to think you left it. Ethan nodded. That is what we believe. Lucas climbed onto his usual stool. Adults make things complicated. Claire let out a surprised laugh. Ethan smiled. That is unfortunately true. Lucas opened his book, then paused. If you are my father, does that make me a prince? Claire closed her eyes. Ethan actually laughed. Technically, there are several titles involved. Do I have to use them? No. Good. Can I still go to school? Of course. Can I still help Mom here? If she lets you. Lucas hesitated. Can I still be Lucas Bennett? Ethan's smile faded. He looked at the boy for a long moment. Always. Something inside Claire softened. Then Lucas rubbed his left wrist. It is warm again. Claire immediately moved beside him. The crescent mark was beginning to glow. Ethan crouched several feet away. May I come closer? Lucas nodded. Ethan approached slowly and brought his hand near the boy's wrist without touching him. Silver lines spread gently around the crescent. Another shape appeared beneath them, faint at first, like ink rising through water. A black wolf surrounded by a thin silver circle. Ethan stopped breathing for a heartbeat. Claire recognized the symbol immediately. Her eyes moved to the signet on the counter. The same wolf. The same crescent. Your crest, she whispered. Ethan nodded. My bloodline. Lucas stared at the mark. Why is it showing now? Ethan slowly withdrew his hand. Because the seal is responding to the bloodline it was created to recognize. Claire felt her pulse quicken. The ancient mark had just confirmed what resemblance and instinct had already suggested. Lucas carried Blackwood blood, but it also confirmed something far more unsettling. 7 years ago, someone had known exactly which royal bloodline the newborn child belonged to. Claire looked at the forged note, the signet, and the glowing crest on her son's wrist. Charles Vane might have written the lie that separated her from Ethan, but nothing yet proved he had placed the seal. Somewhere between the royal household and Cedar Falls Community Hospital, another piece of the truth was still missing. And whoever held it had known about Lucas long before his own father did. By sunset, Cedar Falls had become quiet again, but Claire knew their lives would never return to what they had been that morning. The royal vehicles remained parked near Town Hall, yet Ethan had canceled the formal dinner and every unnecessary meeting. He stayed at the herbal shop instead, sitting across from Lucas at the small wooden table near the window while the boy finished his homework. There was something almost absurd about watching an alpha king struggle through second-grade fractions. That answer is wrong, Lucas said. Ethan frowned at the worksheet. I lead 12 territories. That does not make 4 times 7 equal 30. Claire turned away before either of them saw her smile. For 7 years, she had imagined Lucas asking about his father and feared she would never have enough answers. Now his father was 10 feet away, patiently erasing a number while Lucas explained multiplication to him. The sight did not erase the lost years. It did not excuse the secrets surrounding that stormy night, but it changed something inside her. Ethan was not demanding a place in Lucas's life. He was trying to earn one. Later, when Lucas went upstairs to prepare for bed, Ethan stood beside the counter with his coat folded over one arm. Daniel confirmed Charles Vane is alive, he said. Claire's smile disappeared. Where? Oregon. He owns a small accounting firm outside Portland. Does he know you are looking for him? Not yet. Claire nodded. Keep it that way until we know more. Ethan studied her for a moment, then nodded. Agreed. No argument. No royal command. Claire appreciated that more than she wanted to admit. The hospital records may take longer, she said. Margaret knows someone who still works there. We can start tomorrow. Claire looked toward the stairs. Lucas comes first. Always. The answer arrived without hesitation. Silence settled between them. 7 years ago, silence had been comfortable because neither knew enough to be afraid of losing the other. Tonight it carried everything they had missed. Ethan placed the silver signet on the counter. Keep it. Claire looked down. Why? Because it was used to separate us once. His eyes met hers. I would rather it mean something different now. Claire touched the edge of the ring, but did not pick it up. You cannot repair 7 years in one day. I know. You cannot walk into Lucas's life as a king and expect him to understand what that means. I know. And I am not leaving Cedar Falls because someone decides your son belongs in a palace. Ethan's expression softened. Claire, I did not come here to take him from his life. Then why are you staying? He glanced toward the ceiling, where Lucas's footsteps moved softly across the floorboards. Because I missed his first word. His first step. His first day of school. I cannot change any of that. Ethan looked back at her. But if he lets me, I would like to be here for whatever comes next. Claire felt her wolf stir, warm and strangely peaceful. She had spent 7 years believing Ethan had chosen power over her. Now she understood that someone had stolen their choice before either of them knew what they might have become. That did not make forgiveness automatic. It made forgiveness possible. Lucas appeared at the top of the stairs wearing blue pajamas and holding his green book. "Are you leaving?" he asked Ethan. "I should." Lucas hesitated. "Could you come back tomorrow?" Ethan became completely still. Claire watched the Alpha King disappear from his face. What remained was simply a father hearing his son ask for another day. "Yes," Ethan said quietly. "I would like that." Lucas nodded as though they had completed an important negotiation. 8 o'clock. Mom makes pancakes on Fridays. 8 o'clock. Do not be late. Ethan smiled. "I will not." After Lucas returned upstairs, Ethan moved toward the door. Claire followed him. Outside, the mountains were dark beneath a silver moon. "Ethan." He turned. Claire held out the signet. "You should take this tonight." He looked at the ring, then closed her fingers gently around it instead. "Keep it until you decide what it means." For a moment, neither moved. Then Ethan stepped away. "Good night, Claire." "Good night." She watched him cross Main Street toward the waiting vehicles. 7 years earlier, she had watched an empty doorway and believed he had disappeared willingly. Tonight, he looked back before entering the car. Claire was still standing there. So was he. Upstairs, Lucas called, "Mom, my wrist is glowing again." Claire hurried inside. She found him beside his bedroom window, staring at the crescent. The silver mark was brighter now, but Lucas looked calm. Beyond the glass, wolves somewhere in the mountains began to howl. One voice became 3, then dozens, spreading across the valley like an ancient recognition. Down on Main Street, Ethan stepped away from his vehicle and looked toward the same mountains. Claire joined Lucas at the window and placed an arm around his shoulders. The boy looked up at her. "Are they calling me?" Claire did not know, but her own wolf, silent for most of her life, suddenly answered inside her with a strength she had never felt before. Across the street, Ethan slowly raised his eyes toward their window. Claire understood then that finding each other had not ended their story. It had awakened it. Thank you for watching and sharing this journey with us. Tell us in the comments what you think Claire should do next, and if this story stayed with you, please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel.